My name is George Torrealba. Today is 10/11/14. We're attending the Hall of Fame weekend here in Raeford, North Carolina. I've been asked to pass a few of my experiences of jumping, and I might as well start at the beginning. In December of 1960, I made my first free fall out of an H-21 helicopter. We're trying to figure out whether it was Jerry Borkman or Harry Arter that threw me out. I made about 4 or 5 free falls in that period, and then went to Okinawa. Stayed there 3 years, and there was no parachuting. Later on, I got mixed up with Phil Flynn, D-190, and got started back to parachuting. And I became a member of the 82nd Club, which was being run by Wayne West, who was an ex-Army parachute team member. Gary Dupree, and Tom Benyon, Wayne West, and I would go out to the local trophy meets. They would take care of the big boys and win all the trophies, and I took care of all the amateurs, and I won my trophies. Somewhere along the way, the Army parachute team was looking for somebody to fill a slot, and they went to Wayne West and asked who was, who he would recommend. Wayne recommended me, and that was how I got on the Army parachute team. During my time on the Army parachute team, which was brief, only 2 years, I got to do quite a few little things. Number one was the test jumping of the Delta I single keel parachute. Dick Morgan supposedly was working for NASA, brings this thing down there, and we go out there and he shows me how it works. Of course, he shows me. He does not demonstrate. The next thing I know, I'm up there at an airplane, 3,500 feet, with this strange rag exiting. Well, I got out, and it went bad right from the beginning. I stayed with it long enough to see what was doing what, that I could report, did my cutaway. Well, that became a repetitious thing. Out of the 25 test jumps I made on that Delta I, 22 of them were cutaways. I landed with it 3 times. On a windy day out there, where we couldn't jump, I attached it to a FLA, which is a frontline ambulance, and just to see what it would do, learning how to control it. The winds got up a little higher, and it lifted the entire frontline ambulance up into the air, and we had to get it back down. When, unknown to us, the driver was asleep in the ambulance. He had a rude awakening when it landed. Other test jumps was under Bryce Swindle, was the Pioneer 26-foot LOPO, and Bryce had jumped it on day 1, took it to terminal, and it blew up. Well, that night we took it back to the rigger shed, rotated the lines, made a blank goer out of it, and we developed and meshed it. And the next day we went up there, he jumped the new one, and I jumped another one like he had jumped. Well, I had the same experience he had. I blew mine up, but his worked perfectly. So that night we went back and we fixed mine. The next day we went out and jumped, and both of them worked. And that was a test for Pioneer Parachute Company that they had tested supposedly 600 times. But they had tested it with a sleeve, a deployment bag that would slow down the openings. So an emergency parachute doesn't have to have slow down openings. And when we took it to terminal, we blew it up. Later on in my career, I went over and I was on the Halo Committee in Special Forces. And one of the first things I saw was that during the emergency procedures classes, they just faked pulling a reserve. Well, I got down to the pack shed, because every 90 days you have to repack them reserves, and I arranged it so that when we had that class, we would get some live reserves to pull. Well, that improves safety, because if you've never pulled a live reserve, you find out it's not as easy as it looks. Now, when you get scared, yes, you can pull a truck through there, but on the ground, hanging, suspended harness, they got a chance to actually pull a live reserve. Rewrote the field manual for the para commander. Then wrote an article which led to Hey-Ho and probably Tandem. And I am military free fall instructor number 21. I retired from Special Forces and June 1 of 1980, and came out here to Raeford, handed my parachute to Jean Paul Thacker and said, "Sell it." And in the period since then, I've seen all of the developments of the newer gear, newer equipment, and more important, the newer jumpers. And what they can do nowadays that we couldn't even imagine. And a good example of that is the Golden Knight Female 4 formation team. They are the hottest thing in the sky, beside being good jumpers. This year, they've won the world meet, placed won the nationals here in this country, and went over to SISM, and they probably didn't need the last jump because they won that meet by so many points. They are remarkable jumpers, and they are my favorite team at this time. Of course, I'm a little prejudiced because I had 4 daughters of my own, so that's what. But they have come such a long way in the 3 years I've been really following them, that it's hard to imagine what progress they have made. And if you look at parachuting as it is in today's, I wonder where it's going to go, because I'm wondering whether we're going to have parachutes down the line, because these people are doing things with wingsuits now. I'm looking for them to come in on the belly with a skateboard. So that's my idea of wondering where we're going in the sport.